I'm Teisha with Shalom TV's news update from Monday, March the 17th, 2014.
The Oval Office.
Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas met with U.S. President Barack Obama at the White House today, where they discussed peace efforts between the Palestinians and Israel, presumably also including the American-led framework deal that U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is working on and is set to present to the Palestinians and to Israel at the end of next month in order to extend peace talks between the two parties.
Today, we're going to spend the bulk of our time talking about something that we've been working on for a very long time, and obviously President Abbas has been working on a long time, and that is how do we achieve a comprehensive peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis. We remain convinced that there is an opportunity, and I think everybody understands the outlines of what a peace deal would look like, involving a territorial compromise on both sides based on 67 lines with mutually agreed upon swaps that would ensure that Israel was secure, but would also ensure the Palestinians have a sovereign state in which they can achieve the aspirations that they've held for so long. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Abbas was expected to ask Obama during their meeting to press Israel for a halt in settlement construction and for the release of more Palestinian security prisoners by Israel. Haaretz reports that senior U.S. officials said that President Obama, aside from encouraging Abbas to accept the Kerry-led framework deal, was also expected to let Abbas know that if the talks with Israel fall apart and the PA leader tries to take unilateral action at the United Nations, that the U.S. would block such moves. Abbas arrived in the U.S. this weekend and met yesterday with U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, who was also in attendance at the White House meeting with the president today. According to a senior State Department official, Kerry told Abbas yesterday that there were only a few weeks left for him to make some tough political decisions in regards to peace talks with Israel and to reaching a two-state solution, and that he urged the Palestinian Authority leader to do so. Ahead of Abbas's meeting with Obama today, Israeli President Shimon Peres expressed his optimism about the peace process and his belief in the Palestinian leader's ability to help get there. In a meeting today with human rights activists, Peres said of Abbas, Abu Mazen is a true partner for peace and a man of principles who opposes violence and terror. Peres said he was concerned, though, with the time running out and the April deadline for extending talks approaching, and all the difficult decisions that lay ahead. Peres' support for Abbas followed earlier comments made by Israeli Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon, who told Israel's Channel 2 Saturday night that Abbas was not the partner to make peace with Israel and that he only takes but does not give. Israeli Justice Minister Tzipi Livni, who leads Israel's negotiations with the Palestinians, responded to Ya'alon's statements, posting on Facebook that the process was a complicated and difficult one, but that to only voice criticism is not a plan for leadership. Livni wrote, "Responsible leadership cannot give up on Israel's most basic interests to protect us and Zionism as a Jewish democratic state that ensures we do not turn into a binational state." A convoy of IDF armored vehicles was hit by an explosion from an explosive device along Israel's border with Lebanon Friday night. No soldiers were injured. However, several soldiers were taken to the hospital for precautionary exams. The IDF returned fire at a Hezbollah post in Lebanon. Hezbollah is thought to have been behind the initial explosion. And President Peres' office released a statement today detailing the condolences expressed by him to Jordan over last week's incident at the Allenby border crossing, when a West Bank-born Jordanian judge was shot and killed by IDF soldiers after he charged at them and attempted to grab one of the soldiers' weapons and also started to choke the soldier. The statement said that Peres spoke to Jordan's King Abdullah II and expressed Israel's deepest wishes for peace and cooperation, and also accepted Jordan's request for a joint investigation into the incident at Allenby. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also had expressed regret over the Allenby incident last week. Israel has tried to calm tensions with Jordan that arose after the shooting of the judge last week. Jordanians had protested at the Israeli embassy in Amman, calling for an end to the peace treaty with Israel. B'nai B'rith International will mark the anniversary of the Israeli embassy bombing in Buenos Aires, Argentina, that took place 22 years ago today. On the afternoon of March the 17th, 1992, a suicide bomber drove a truck loaded with explosives into the embassy and then detonated several bombs, killing 29 people and injuring 242. Iran has been linked to the attack, but no one has ever been tried. B'nai B'rith International President Alan Jacobs said 22 years later the wounds from this attack still feel fresh. He said it's hard to find closure in such a horrific tragedy when no one has been brought to justice. Despite the passing of decades, B'nai B'rith, he said, will not forget this unnecessary loss of life. The organization will participate in a commemoration ceremony in Buenos Aires to remember those lost in the bombing tomorrow. The Jerusalem Post reports that Jewish philanthropist Yank Barry has been nominated for the 2014 Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts in rescuing Syrian refugees. Yank Barry was nominated by Texas Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee last week, saying that he single-handedly spearheaded a never-before-accomplished mission to rescue over 60 individuals from the deplorable conditions in the refugee camps of Bulgaria. She said Barry has crossed religious and economic boundaries for the helpless victims of the Syrian war, praising his foundation, Global Village Champions. In Bulgaria, where Barry has been finding refuge for the refugees, he is known as the Jewish Schindler for his rescue efforts. He has been nominated for the Nobel twice before.
Did we ever talk about you being in the Army?
I was in 101st Airborne for a while.
Yeah.
Until I found out they jump out of planes.
That's right.
Jewish comedian David Brenner has passed away. Brenner died Saturday at his home in Manhattan at the age of 78 after battling cancer. Brenner was one of the most frequent guests of The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. He was a pioneer of observational humor. His career performing stand-up and acting on television spanned over 4 decades. He was also an author, producer, and director. David Brenner is survived by his wife, 3 children, and 1 grandson.
Did you ever notice they picked the astronauts? Remember, they picked them by their names. I'm sure of that. Brad, Glenn, Biff. They never picked an astronaut like Melvin.
Well, the White House released a statement ahead of the Purim holiday observed this past weekend, including a recipe for the holiday treat Hamantaschen. The statement recounted the story of Purim and its significance in the world today. It said, with all the fun of the holiday, it's also important to remember Purim's more serious underlying themes of persecution and survival in the face of the planned genocide of ancient Persia's Jews. It said based on events over 2,000 years ago, these themes resonate throughout the centuries and in today's world as well. By speaking up and speaking out, justice will triumph over evil. The statement was posted by the White House liaison to the Jewish community, Matt Nisanchik, who took over the role earlier this year. And turning to our Shalom TV programming for tonight, Monday, March the 17th, coming up at 6:30 on In the News, Mark Golub is joined by President of Amenu, Kenneth Bob, talking about the Arab League and PA President Mahmoud Abbas's rejection of Israel as a Jewish state. Then at 7 o'clock from the recent AIPAC National Policy Conference, a panel of Israeli opinion on the peace process, which features Israeli author and journalist Ari Shavit, Dr. Natan Sachs of the Brookings Institute, and Dr. David Pollack of the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. Then at 9 o'clock, journalist and media personality Yishai Fleischer joins Mark Golub on L'chaim. That's all coming up tonight here on Shalom TV and ShalomTV.com. And that's Shalom TV's news update for Monday, March the 17th, 2014. I'm Teisha Bader.